Pandemonium reigns.
The 2025 wide receiver room for Tennessee football. Is it going to be a strength? Is it going to be a weakness? I don't know, but we're going to talk about it. I'm Dan. This is Mike. This is Pandemonium Reigns. We have been out of your ears, out of your minds, out of your thoughts. Probably going on 2 months now. I know the last time that I was able to put out anything was just before the Tennessee-Ohio State game in the first round of the college football playoffs. So without further ado, we owe you an apology, but at the same time, get over it. You don't get paid to do this. How you been, bro?
Pretty good. Very busy. Very busy, but pretty good. How about yourself?
Is this the cliche part where I say live in a dream?
That's probably, I don't know, is it applicable? Living a dream?
A little bit.
There we go. We'll take it then.
A little bit.
We'll take it.
Let's jump right into this, man. Tennessee football 2025, specifically on the wide receiver room. We survived the Mike Matthews here gone season. It turns out he is actually here to stay. Just to kind of start things off, I was in we're going to go 3-9 if we don't retain Mike Matthews. That's how mad I was, because you're looking at this wide receiver room, and I don't care about it. Doesn't matter, Nico, offensive line doesn't matter. Let's say the defense could be just as good. It was going to be Chris Brazell and Braylon Staley.
Yeah.
At that point in time.
Yeah.
It was like 3-9.
I was ready to burn things. I was panicking. We're talking about he'll be a true sophomore. I don't think he surely played too much to redshirt. The bad part is he caught 10 passes, and one was a touchdown that we saw against Vandy. One was a nice athletic catch we saw against Kent State, but we were panicking, ready to burn things down because we were going to lose that kid based on the potential. If you'll remember, he was ranked in the vicinity of Jeremiah Smith and Wingo and Ryan Williams coming out, and we were going to absolutely be done with the staff. We were going to boycott going to games because that guy was going to leave.
Well, his name now escapes me, but the position coach,
Kelsey Pope.
Yeah, Pope. I was going, if we lose Matthews, he's got to go too.
Yeah.
You don't get to go from a room with Brew McCoy and Dante Thornton and Squirrel White and Nathan Leacock, who they were high on at one point in time, and Chaz Nimrod, who's found a home in Tampa, Florida for the Bulls. Caleb Webb, who's been here since Hunter Renfrow was at Clemson. You go from that to two, Chris Brazell and Braylon Staley. But we survived it. Mike Matthews is going to be clad in orange and white. So with those three, now we've got two other names I think we should be discussing. But with those three, overall, how do we feel?
Feels like that is, it's just in line with this conversation that we're having. It is. You feel good about it. You think that Brazell can maybe have a trajectory similar to Dante Thornton, that he can have a big second year like we've seen guys do going back before Dante Thornton. And that would apply to me, in my mind, for Staley and for Matthews in addition to Brazell. Yeah. But we're talking about scratching the floor, not scratching the ceiling. We're scratching the floor. This is the minimum. You're going to be relying. There's no way that you're not asking something of these incoming freshmen. And yet again, we have freshmen on campus that the staff likes, that analysts like, that Georgia made a run at the one out of their backyard. But what are they going to do as young players when that's not been a young player position for Heupel and staff so far?
For sure. And I made the mistake of pulling up the transfer portal list, just the receiver room alone. And obviously, it's public news that we swung and missed for Zachariah Branch, and of all places, he ends up in Athens, Georgia.
Yep.
I think we took a swing at Concepcion out of NC State, and then you had guys like Barian Brown and Kevin Coleman, and what was the A&M receiver that we were talking about? And he was getting Cedric Tillman comparisons. Anyway,
yeah, his name escapes me hard, but yeah,
we missed out on him. And you just go through this list, and we just missed out, and we just missed out, and we just missed out. The one that we did land, this is one of the two names that I wanted to mention, was Amari Jefferson, transfer from Bama. In Heupel's time, he mainly plays 3, maybe 4 receivers, right? I think we've seen that since 21. Is there a spot there where I'm missing? I mean, 21 it was basically Tillman, 22 Hyatt, Tillman. Golly, I turned 38 and my brain just started doing this thing where it doesn't tick anymore.
Well, no, you're naming the guys that we relied on.
Well, yeah, and then 23 was Squirrel White,
and that is where things I thought would change a little bit, because Squirrel was a true sophomore who flashed as a true freshman, who absolutely flashed. Didn't matter to me in my mind, my logical thinking went out the window when we're up by 30 and you've got Milton laying it in the hands of Squirrel White down the football field. We expect it to carry over, and we attempted it to carry over a lot. Squirrel got force-fed attempts, and in 2023, guys were able to key in on him, and we had so many safeties just sitting back, keeping things in front of them. Mm-hmm. In 2024, you had Squirrel with a banged-up shoulder where he couldn't even raise his arms he had to jump out of the gym to try to catch the ball.
I think that was you making that joke. He doesn't know how to put his arms above his shoulders anymore.
Yeah, he absolutely couldn't. I'm convinced. I think it was an AC joint for him. I'm sure it hurt every time he attempted to catch football.
I hate that for him. But
me too.
I mean, you got to believe that some of that force feeding was taking a toll. I mean, the dude is 100 pounds soaking wet.
Yeah, and that's where that takes me something I don't think either one of us really want to get into here today too much. But the way we would bring Squirrel over the middle and use other guys deeper, it didn't make sense. It still doesn't make sense. Yeah. There was a real disconnect somewhere, it seems, coming out of the greater 2023 region of things, but that's the way it went. And I wonder if it was the force feeding. I don't remember if it was a specific incident, but he was such a small guy that the toll was going to be taken.
Yeah. Well, nonetheless, I think what we were getting at there for a moment was, we basically rely on 3 guys, right? And so on paper, the 3 is clear. Brazil, Matthews, and Staley. In my mind, it's clear. However, 2024 didn't unfold like we thought it was going to. We knew we were going to be able to run the ball. We didn't know we were going to run it that well. I think we knew we were going to be good defensively. I didn't think we were going to be that good.
Yep.
We also didn't anticipate Nico missing as many targets as he did.
Absolutely.
So, with all that being said, I think you have to be able to rely on more than 3. And the question is, after Brazil, Matthews, and Staley, I think you're going to have the Alabama transfer, Amari Jefferson, step up. Year 2 in college football, but he's going to come with 4 years of eligibility. Yep. Travis Smith, they're real excited about. True freshman coming in. He was I just had this pulled up. He was the number 17th ranked receiver in the class. But another name that we also need to mention, and this should create some buzz, is Boo Carter. Where is he going to fit into this whole thing? Because, in my mind, on paper it should be Amari. But Boo better be making one heck of a case, especially if all that back and forth between him and the staff actually happened with all that conversation on the offense and him being included.
I couldn't agree more. I don't know. That's the downside of, the added downside on top, the negative cherry on top of all this NIL stuff, of all the portal stuff, is we never know what was real, what transpired.
Right.
We don't know how deeply Tennessee went after Concepcion and Branch and the young man from Texas A&M. We don't know. So we don't know if Boo is going to come back and just be the nickel corner again and the punt returner, or is he going to actually be given a chance to do some of the things we saw him do that were otherworldly on the offensive side of the football in high school?
Yeah.
We don't know if he's going to be given that chance, or are we going to, again, like you're saying, go with the 3 that we've mentioned, Amari Jefferson. Is it going to be, for the first time in the 5th year of a tenure, a young receiver forcing himself into action, in meaningful action, not mop-up duty like we referred to with Squirrel, but
right.
which is it going to be? We don't know. We'll never know unless, the only way you find out those things is if things go really bad and a player airs it all out on their way out the door, which you don't still don't see a lot of, even in that scenario. Right. But it's either going to have to be a first or it is going to be 3 men carrying a really big load.
Yeah, which makes me think if there's ever a time for our staff to develop somebody, I mean, this is it. You and I have gone back and forth since the end of the 21 season on who's going to be the next Theo Jackson, right? Yep. Who's going to just kind of emerge out of nowhere. And you arguably had 2 that year. You could almost throw Matthew Butler into that conversation.
Great point.
But out of all the positions, right, I'm looking at this one and going, if this ever needed to happen, if a Theo Jackson ever needed to rise, it really needs to be out of the receiver room in 25. And I look at Brazil and I go, well, he's certainly got the capabilities to do it.
Yes.
Like what we saw in 24, a big touchdown against Alabama. Saw glimpses of Mike Matthews. Hopefully he's going to come into 25 pissed off, ready to set a tone. I'm in the Jeremiah Smith conversation, watch me work.
Yep.
Braylon Staley just took a back seat to that whole conversation while all that stuff between Mike Matthews and Boo Carter was even going on. So, and then you got again Amari Jefferson and this Travis Smith kid. Who's going to be I'm not asking you this, but it makes me wonder, like, if it's going to happen, is it going to be, who's going to be the next Theo in the receiver room, and why can it not be Boo? You know what I mean?
100%. When it comes to developing, I totally agree with the guys that we've put the most development into. We've gotten the most development out of. With the 2 you mentioned, Matthew Butler's a great case study in this. Tillman, you could argue that all he needed was the opportunity. Like, he was so lowly heralded coming out of high school. He was here for a couple of years, made an insane catch in the short time he did get to play, but you could argue he just needed the opportunity.
Sure.
I've heard about the work that Kelsey Pope, back before when he was more of an analyst, before he was the receiver coach, the work that he had to put in with Velus Jones for Velus to grasp what his role was within the offense to get that out of him.
Mm-hmm.
But it's time to pull it out of one of these other guys. And really, you don't want it to just be one. With the situation we're in numbers-wise, you need it to be more than one. You need options for Nico to throw to.
For sure.
I totally agree with Boo. I mean, the way I think about it actually is that Boo in Tennessee would benefit. Sorry about that. Got cut off in action there. But what I was going to say was, when you think about Boo, whatever transpired, and you think about Tennessee in the position we're in, you probably think more. You probably think more along the lines of Boo's on offense. If he's going to play one position, it's on offense.
Mm-hmm.
If he can be an Iron Man, he'll be one of very few. And and everybody's thinking about Iron Man right now because of what we saw in the 2024 season, of just how high Travis Hunter is going to go in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
You and I know Travis Hunter is the farthest thing from a common case, that all schools don't just have one sitting around, that they don't come in every class.
Right.
So, I think more along the lines of, if we're going to get the most out of Boo, it's probably going to be on offense as a weapon.
Sure.
Probably getting him. I think if we're going to get the most out of him, you're giving him carries, you're giving him bubbles, you're sending him out on routes.
Yeah.
You're doing whatever, and you're getting the ball in his hands that way, because you need electricity that doesn't come in a handoff to a running back exclusively. You need electricity back in the pass game. It needs it in the worst way, whatever the cost, I think.
Yeah, well, 2 thoughts to that. Had you mentioned Boo Carter playing both ways without Travis Hunter existing, I'd have told you you're crazy, because
exactly
we don't see it anymore.
Exactly.
And now that we're going to be back to running back by committee, why not give Boo some of those touches? We know that he's electric with the ball in his hands. I mean, look at some of his punt returns while he was in college. Go YouTube when he was at Bradley Central and Chattanooga Christian, what he was doing.
And with that in mind, it just popped in my head. But think about Tennessee's play action rate. It's literally every pass play starts with a play action.
Yeah.
Imagine we're playing Syracuse next year, or whoever week 2 is, he breaks off a big run, or he reverses field does something superhuman that you just don't see every week, and then you have to defend that against play action when that may help literally every other unit. The receivers that we're asking a lot of out of a small group, the offensive line that's got steps to take, and Nico who's got obvious steps to take from this season's work.
Yeah,
you're defending. You're worrying about Boo Carter potentially getting the ball with a head of steam, and then what may open up because of that.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think the worst case scenario is that Boo is the one that is stepping up, and you also need him at that star position on defense.
Yeah,
and you just start to ask too much of him. I think that's the worst case scenario. I think an ideal scenario is you get somebody, kind of coming off the map and jumping off again, I hate to kind of beat this down, but Theo Jackson. If we could get Amari Jefferson to do that, if we could get Braylon Staley to do that.
Yes.
If we could be, I mentioned 21, Tillman, 22, Hyatt, 23, Squirrel, 24, Thornton. If we could get more of receiver by committee.
Yep.
In 25, that's actually not a bad situation if those guys can share the load, especially if we can continue to have success in the run game, which I think we will. We did it with a banged up Jabari Small and a rookie Jalen Wright. We were able to do some of these things.
Yep.
So with that said, I'm totally okay with receiver by committee, but I just think that you're gonna have to have more than the three that we're naming, and we're assuming that those three step up. We're assuming that Brazil, Matthews, and Staley all do what they're supposed to do.
Yep.
Thornton's junior year, womp. 22, Tillman gets hurt midway through. 21, Hyatt was not what he was mid-season 22. And 23, it was Squirrel. Brew had an injury. He went down.
Yeah.
So if history is showing us anything, 25 has to be receiver by committee, right?
Absolutely has to be. The one upside and again, things are just popping into mind here. The one upside, if you were to take Boo off of the defensive side of the football, say he just plays offense. If memory serves, the thought was that Jordan Thomas was going to play some star this year, which seemed curious to me because he'd been a safety before when we did see him. Of course, we lost him before the season, never got a chance to do that. We were playing Boo and Christian Harrison there this year.
Yeah.
So that's a big factor. That could be a huge help. Now you're also replacing Will Brooks, so safety is going to be a much more, you're going to be factoring in more bodies, you would think, into who those safeties are, as well as across the board. Jamal McCoy's hurt as well. So really there's like one sure thing, maybe two if you count Turrentine and Ricky Gibson.
Yeah.
But yeah, going to offense, it's going to have to be a group effort. And the bad thing about it is there is no Brew McCoy. There is no Tillman. There's not even a Squirrel who we thought we would be able to count on to give an example of what the room was doing in 21 and 22 when there was so much success and it was a little bit more spread out. In 22, you had at least two people early on when you had Hyatt and Tillman. Mm-hmm. Like if Brazil, if Matthews, or if Staley aren't, if none of them are leaders, that's when you're really going to hurt, I think. And it's like, is the expectation going to be given to them? I worry about it coming from Pope. I worry it coming about from any of those players when it's been a couple of seasons of lackluster results from them. Of course, none of us know what 2023 would have looked like on the whole if Brew hadn't gone down against Carolina. But we can't flash back to that. Obviously, we just know it was a factor. Unfortunately, you lose dudes with starts, you lose dudes with the production, you lose potential leadership, and you've got a lot of questions. And I think that it's going to be Heupel and Pope and any analyst that works with the pass game to try to dig deep, show what the leadership needs to look like, and just pull it out of these guys by any means necessary. It has to be a group effort. Yeah,
for sure. So with that said, I've got one more comment on this, and I have a question that I just want to ask you, and then I feel like we can wrap it up. You and I went back and forth on the 24 season, and Heupel, a lot of the Vol fan base did, on Heupel's lack of creativity in the offense. And if that is ever going to resurrect itself, it needs to happen in 25. especially if you're not getting these receivers stepping up. If you go into August and you're not sure who your, you know, who your three starters are, your X, Y, and your Z, or your slot, or whatever you want to call it, we need to see the creativity again. That has got to make a return. Got to make a return. We were so vanilla as I went back and looked at it, this past season, just so vanilla. We missed out on a lot of the switch routes. We didn't see that. We were hitch heavy.
Yep.
Deep crosses and hitches like nobody's business. And I just think you're gonna have to do more because, and I don't really want to travel down this road, but you're losing an anchor at the center position with Cooper Mays. So what is that gonna look like with him being gone? So again, I think it'll come Atlanta when we're playing Syracuse in game 1. I think we immediately need to start seeing some creativity. If we don't, fans are going to have to assume that these guys are legit, these receivers are legit, and we don't have to do that. All that makes sense?
It does. We've been begging for the creativity, and that's so much farther beyond just the two of us. Like, we've all been looking for it.
Yeah.
And I think there's elements to it where it was so unexpected. The explosion, the efficiency of the offense early on was so unexpected. It did way more for us than we probably thought possible. And we just went to probably expecting it year after year. Doesn't matter to the players. It clearly matters to players, but we've got to figure out how to infuse the life back into it. I agree with our route tree, what you said about it this year. It's been very limited every year. And again, that goes back to the players executing it. The speed of height, it goes back to, and Hendon Hooker, of course, it goes back to all those things. But, I think we could learn a lot just by turning on film of 2024 Syracuse and looking at how they were able to move the ball around, get the most out of Kyle McCord. Yeah. I think we've got to be open to anything and everything. The route tree, the tempo, slow it down if you got it. I don't care. We're not catching anybody. We haven't caught anybody by surprise in a long time in terms of a really good opponent. So do whatever it takes, man. If it's running 4 and 5 reverses a game, hey, here's another one we'd all love to see. Run Nico as safely as you can. He proved this year that he's a pretty tough guy for as small as his frame is, and you're not going to go get him killed, but run him safely. I think he'll learn how to get down, or eventually he'll be knocked out of a game. That's just going to happen. And your offense, if the last 2 years have been any indication of it, it's going to be required. It's not going to be a luxury. It's not going to be, you're not going to be winning because you had to do it. It's going to have to be added in, smoothly and efficiently in order to just make the whole engine function better.
Yeah, well, here's to hoping that Nico put some weight on that frame of his, because he's not small. He's 6'6", but he could afford a few more Big Macs. But hey,
if he wants to skip leg day, he's got my permission, buddy. Just hit chest, eat 10 protein shakes a day, and get that frame above the waist to where you can take those hits, and we'll try to keep your helmet intact, and we already trust your legs.
Was that a joke at his helmet actually breaking?
Yes, for sure. We'll try to do a better job of that. You just buff up that chest, that target zone where players are going to hit you at. We'll go from there.
One question before we hop off here, and we'll go ahead and cut it. If you could hold on to one of the guys that hit the portal for the 2025 season, just for the 25 season alone, White, Spillman, Laycock, Nimrod, Webb, who are you holding on to?
If there's any stipulation, and I'm not going to put any stipulations into this, if I could make one, it would be Squirrel. You just aren't going to force feed him. You're going to use him maybe more how he looks to be designed to be most effectively used. If you're going to force feed him, I'm going to say Nimrod, because I've seen what he can do deep. Prior to this season, he didn't have an issue so much catching the football. He didn't get the playing time that would reflect that, but he didn't have so much of an issue catching the ball until whatever happened around the Arkansas-Florida time frame of this season. So no stipulations. I'm adding Nimrod. If I can stipulate that we are going to use a guy effectively, it's going to be Squirrel, because he makes tough catches, way tougher catches than his frame should allow him to do in traffic. He's crazily athletic for such a small guy, and it's just another guy in the long Tennessee history, and it's going to happen to more and more schools now. The portal is what it is, but just another guy that we never got to see that top end of what it could be.
I think my answer is the same. My only reserve is that are we going to get a healthy Squirrel White?
That's a big one too. I didn't even think about stipulating that.
Because of that, I probably go Nimrod.
Yeah,
we started to see him rise. He had a tough drop against Kentucky, but he was starting to see more drives and more snaps. I always wanted it to be Caleb Webb because I thought the potential for him was insane, but it just never panned out. We'll see what he does at Maryland. We'll see what Nimrod does at USF. Obviously, Squirrel at Florida State, and hopefully Nathan Laycock will go do some noise in the Big Ten with Purdue. Hey, man, thanks for hanging out with me. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. This is, again, Pandemonium Reign. Sorry for not being in your speakers for a minute. We have jobs, we have lives, we have families. Michael is going through some pretty big life changes ever since the last time we recorded. New job, and the house is going to be on the market soon. So if you're in the Chattanooga area, go buy his house. It's the least you could do. You can hit the like button, you can hit the subscribe button, and you can buy somebody's house. Don't tell me you don't have the money. Shut up, hit the button, buy the house. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. I'm Dan. He's Mike. God bless. Go Vols.
GBO.